does it make you feel proud, this rise in Hindu nationalism? Or does it make you feel uncomfortable? Let's speak to Sanjay, who called in from Leicester. And no prizes for guessing, if you listen to this show, how you think Sanjay will feel about this. Of course, he'll be proud of this rise in Hindu nationalism. But Sanjay, considering you came on here before, would you like to retract that statement?
No, I shouldn't. But I want to go back to what we were talking about. I'm happy that these Hindu fundamentalist groups are getting stronger in India. We have to protect India, our one country, besides Nepal. Let's just go back now, just quickly, because I want to just make it quickly aware right now. In 800, it was all Hindu and Buddhist living in Kashmir, India, everywhere, or the whole of India, including Bangladesh, Pakistan, was all India. Then Muslims came in to conquer from the north. They conquered for around 900 years. Then the British took over for 200 years. Now, the thing is, before the British gave the independence, they split India up because Muslims wanted their own land. So they gave them East and West Pakistan. Now, they were supposed to go to East and West Pakistan. Only 20% went. The 80% still remained in India, which never made sense why split India up in the first place. So it's from all this, it's about monotheistic religions like Christianity and Islam, which want to conquer land. And I don't know why Muslims feel like they need to take land over. I mean, if it's such a tolerant religion, and it's all about tolerating intolerance, because like Robert Spencer said, tolerating the intolerant is suicide, because there's only so much you can tolerate people. If you can't just sit there meditating forever while people want to take your land over and kill you and conquer and rape you.
But wait a minute, but does India want to lower itself to how some Muslim countries react towards minorities? Saudi Arabia, for instance, which has just been accused of chopping off an Indian woman's arm. I mean, India does not want to be judged by the standards of some of these countries, which are hugely intolerant. We've seen, of course, how Hindus have been treated in Afghanistan. Does India really want to have a race to the bottom? Because that's essentially what it would be.
Well, no, because countries like these Muslim countries are intolerant to all religious minorities.
Not all.
Okay, in India, even if we become a real fundamentally strong Hindu country, it doesn't mean that the religious minorities will suffer. Sikhism won't suffer. Buddhism, Jainism won't suffer. Christianity won't suffer if they become more tolerant towards Hinduism. That's fine. It's only Islam which has got the problem.
As the majority, why is it the job of the minority to be tolerant? Surely, as the majority, 80% of the population, it is the job of the majority to be tolerant and open-minded towards the minorities.
You ask me questions like this. Are you trying to say that the minority can't be a threat to the majority if the majority are too tolerant and the minority are intolerant? There's a limit. And this is what I'm saying. There's only so much you can tolerate the intolerance, because they'll kill you and want to take your whole land over.
Okay.
Islam started to take over the land and destroy all religions. That was their main priority. And what happened
if that had been their main priority, they haven't done a very good job of it, considering 80% of India is still Hindu. But let me just give you some statistics. I mean, recently released statistics, these come from August of this year. So the first half of 2015, there'd been a 30% increase in intercommunal violence compared with the same period in 2014 in India. So you could argue from that this increase in Hindu pride has led to an increase in intercommunal violence in India. And that's not the secular democracy that India is it?
It depends on, it's all about intolerance again and tolerating.
But you're intolerant, aren't you?
I'm only intolerant because, Nihal, think of it as my thing. All my life I've been reading stories about Muslims doing this and that to India, and it's constant, and Hindus weren't doing anything. It was Congress in charge, and it's about time we stand up. Is there anything wrong? Muslims don't have to worry in India. It's not about Muslims, they're individuals. The problem is when you get sick people in India, like there are extremists who say, we want to hurt Hindus, we want to take over land. This is happening.
But what about extreme... Wait a minute, but what about...
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, tell me which country, a Muslim country, where there's a Hindu there saying, we want to take over Muslim land. It wouldn't happen, because this is not normal behavior. This is not, the whole, Islam is an intolerant faith which wants to take over the world and destroy all the religions, and it started by conquering, and now it's doing it by overpopulating in democratic countries.
Do you know what happened in Muzaffarnagar in 2014?
No, I don't.
Right, there was just before the election in May 2014, violence flared up between Muslims and Hindus, which left 60 people dead. You're also, of course, aware of how many Muslims died in Gujarat in 2002. So you are aware that there has been issues. You're also aware, of course, that there have been issues between the Hindu and the Sikh communities in India. So does it not worry you that if there is a rise in what some describe as Hindu fundamentalism, that there will be a rise in attacks? I mean,
There won't if Christians, if Muslims don't do wrong. If they do wrong, then Hindus will react, and it's about time. Every action has a reaction. Physics has taught us this. And about Sikhs, the only time, I love Sikhs, and I love Sikhism. The only time that upsets me about Sikhs is when you get callers like Jagaraj Singh and Ravi Singh who put themselves with Muslims, because Sikhs are a part of India. I don't know why some people ring in and they put themselves as a minority and they put themselves with Muslims, because Muslims are not a part of India and Christians are not a part of India. The only good thing about Christians, at least they're starting
Sorry, why would you say that someone who is not an Indian? So as far as you're concerned, there's no such thing as a Indian Muslim?
Of course there are. There are Indian Muslims, but...
But you just said they're not a part of India.
No. Yeah, when I said that, I'm talking about originally not a part of India. I'm talking about the
So you can be an Indian Muslim in 2015?
Yes, you can, and there are really good Muslims who voted BJP, who've got common sense and open-minded.
So you can only be a good Muslim if you vote BJP in India?
No, if you're open-minded, because if you look into the Quran, if they're following the word of the Quran, then it will just be a nightmare for the whole world.
Right, Sanjay, thank you very much. 81869 on the text, email nihal@bbc.co.uk, and give us a call and tell us what you think. Now, I know a lot of people complain about us putting Sanjay on air and say, why are you putting this man on? But he has an opinion, and he has an opinion that he's willing to voice. And so often the case is that people have these opinions, but they keep it to themselves. They say it in living rooms. You may know someone, you may be someone who shares the same opinions, but you're not. Weirdly enough, it's a weird word I choose with some hesitation, brave enough to come on a national radio station and say, this is how I feel about India. This is how I feel about Hinduism. This is how I feel about Hindu nationalism. Sanjay articulates it. You may well not like what you hear, but that doesn't say that he's on his own in thinking like this. Clearly he isn't. By the acts of Shiv Sena and the RSS, he is not on his own. Sujata, good morning.
Good morning, Nihal.
Does it make you feel uncomfortable or proud?
Yes, it does. Indeed, it does. Because right from the outset, I must stress that I do not condone any form of physical violence, no matter whether it's mild or not. But it is a form of violence, and I do not condone it at all. You know, if you want to get a point of view across, use words, for goodness sake. You know, you can sit around a table and use words. However, I do understand the frustrations of people who have tried to use words and have tried to use ink in the correct manner.
But by people, sorry, do you mean Hindus?
But they can't get their voices heard, or they can't get their points of view across for whatever reason. So therefore, they resort to violence. And
sorry, I need to be clear on this. Are you saying then that Hindus' voices have been ignored previously?
They have been ignored totally, yes.
Right. By the Congress?
By the Congress Party, and also not just here in India, but across the world. Hindus are frustrated that, you know, their voices aren't heard. Equalities seem to be veered more towards other groups rather than the Hindus themselves. So I can understand where this frustration is coming from. However, I do not condone violence. But we've seen this here in Britain, Nihal. We've seen, Preza being left with egg on his face, literally. You know, and recently we've seen the attacks on journalists in this country by rent-a-mob who have threatened to rape women and attack women who are just journalists doing their jobs. So I think there is a sheer frustration from the public generally about the way politics are conducted, and they feel that their voices aren't being heard. And so maybe this is what's happening. But I do not like it. I don't like it one bit.
So, okay, none of us are expecting any of you to condone violence, but the question is about Hindu nationalism in India and whether that makes you feel proud or uncomfortable. If violence makes you feel uncomfortable, then that's probably the right way to think about violence. But about Hindu nationalism, about this assertion of Hindu pride, does that make you feel proud?
Absolutely. That makes me feel very proud, because for every action, there is a reaction. Even if somebody doesn't take any action of any kind and remains silent, that is also a form of reaction to an action. And I think for years and years and years, for many, many years now, Hindus, especially under Congress, felt that they were sidelined, they were ostracized, that they didn't have equalities. And so perhaps now they feel some kind of, a sense of opportunity. I think that's the right word. Opportunity now to feel free to be Hindu, to celebrate being a Hindu, and to have a Hindu voice and a Hindu identity, which for years they felt was, not allowed really because of all this, the wrong interpretation of secularism had taken rise. And so Hinduism had been squashed under this misconception and a misunderstanding of what secularism really means.
But isn't one of the strengths of Hinduism, Sujata, its pluralism, its open-mindedness, its lack of fundamentalism? Now, you see fundamentalist Christians, you see fundamentalist Muslims.
Yeah.
But surely Hinduism prides itself on the fact there are many paths to God. It prides itself on the fact that it is an open religion. It doesn't wish to convert anyone. Isn't this kind of fundamentalism that we are seeing in India a threat to the image of Hindus around the world?
No, not at all.
But the Congress, just to say, the Congress party have said, post the attack on this gentleman in India, Sudhindra Kulkarni, the attack on him, they've said the idea of India as the most liberal democratic country is being destroyed at the root. That's what the Congress party is saying.
No, there is an attempt to destroy it. Yes, I'll accept that, but it won't be destroyed because the thing...
Who's trying to destroy it?
Well, there are troublemakers in any country. Whenever there's a political, one party that's in charge, whoever that is, the opposition will obviously try and do anything to discredit that party or try and bring it down. That's just a natural way that politics has always happened. However, some people take it to a very, very far extreme, and that's wrong, when violence is used. So there will be miscreants both outside of the BJP and within the BJP and the Shiv Sena who will be causing problems. Now, we know, you and I know full well that in any kind of political arena, there will be those miscreants who are in that political arena, not because of politics, but because of the power struggle. That's all, to see who wins. And, I'm tougher than you kind of playground tactics.
So you're wholeheartedly against the Shiv Sena, are you?
No, I'm not against them. What I'm against is any kind of gundagiri, as we call it, or any kind of criminal activity that some political parties will do. It's called rent-a-mob, isn't it? I mean, we call it rent-a-mob.
So would you condemn their attack on this gentleman where they've covered him in black paint?
I would, yes, indeed, because it's an old village. It's an old ancient tradition where you black somebody's face. Now, that has happened, in all across the world. It's the equivalent of blacking somebody's face. Now, in this country, we used to, tar and feather people. So it's not something that's just exclusively within the domains of the Indian mentality.
No, Sujata, let me just stop you there. Raju Pandya is a Hindu priest and joins me now. Raju, good morning.
Good morning, Neha.
Good morning. Very well, thank you. Thanks for joining us. What do you think about what the Congress have said? The idea of India as the most liberal democratic country is being destroyed at the root. Do you think Hindu nationalism is helping to destroy the image of India abroad as being a tolerant country?
No, not at all. Not at all. I just feel that Congress needs to speak up now because they're under threat themselves from some of the minority committees they've been supporting up till now and keeping quiet when any kind of fundamentalism or extremism comes out from those minorities. But as soon as the Hindus start spreading the word to the young people, awakening them, then they get worried.
So is that not fundamentalism?
No, not at all. It's called informing and education to young people who up till now have just kept quiet. Tolerance, they say Hindus are very tolerant. I think sometimes tolerance is being treated like a doormat, and that is not the tolerance Hinduism is all about.
And do you think then that Hindus have been treated like a doormat in essentially their own country?
I think so.
And what proof would you have of that?
Sorry?
What proof would you have of that?
Well, up till now, the way the temples, are being treated, treated of very, very heavy taxes, used to take care of mosques and churches in India, and they have just kept quiet. They have kept quiet, and the temples every month, I would say, about 350 temples are just closing down because of all this unfairness towards the Hindu temples.
Sorry. If in a country which is 80% Hindu, if Hindu temples are closing down, that presumably is not the fault of minorities.
No. It's the strategy of the government, right? Up till now, the strategy of the government was to tax the Hindu temples heavily to try and fund the mosques and the Christianity to keep those churches and mosques going. And because of this reason, over the past years and years and years, many temples have been closing down for this very reason, Nihal.
Because of government taxation?
Yes. And also, Nihal, don't forget that imams paid a wage. They are paid an official wage, yet Hindu priests do not get a wage at all. And anybody, and quite rightly so, who is entitled to go on any kind of Hajj, and if they want to go on any kind of, religious journey, they do get a subsidy. Islam is respected, as you quite rightly said. Hindus do respect all religions and all peoples from different backgrounds. That is the proudest thing that I feel about being a Hindu and being Indian. But therefore, it doesn't mean that everybody else gets, that kind of support. Yet Hindus themselves get lagged behind. They don't get any help or support or subsidy whatsoever.
So you feel that there has been this discrimination against Hindus
yes, it's evidential.
in India. But then, Raju, do you worry that some people are taking this Hindu nationalism as an excuse to attack minorities?
Yes, that is going to happen, and I agree with Echo.
Do you think that is happening? Do you?
The violence, right? The violence that's happening is something that no Hindu will condone. It is just not the case. If I read the case of one of the person who was lynched because he was accused of
eating beef,
right? I mean, that is not Hinduism. That is not how you take charge of trying to follow our rituals.
But is this increase in Hindu nationalism creating an atmosphere whereby perhaps people who are less educated are feeling that they now have carte blanche to do what they wish? Remember, under India's constitution, India is a secular country.
Yes, but we have elections going on at the moment, and we do have people who will do anything to create divisions, and they will create communal strife and tension because it helps them with the electioneering that's going on. And at the end of the day, there are a lot of people frustrated that the mass riots that were predicted when Modi won, and that people said, oh, now that Modi ji is coming in now, he's now the Prime Minister, there's going to be mass riots and communal strife. Well, that has not happened.
Do you think...
So there will be people out to cause trouble, criminal types, who will do anything they can to prove that legacy to be true when it's not true at all.
Sujata, do you think that Muslims, Christians and Sikhs, Buddhists and Jains should be regarded as the equal of Hindus?
Everybody on this planet should be equal and has every right to be equal. Of course they do. In Hinduism, that's one of the things that makes me proud, to be able to live and
So why are people attacking churches then in India?
Who are these people?
Why are people being asked to convert back to Hinduism? If they are equal, then why not let them remain Muslims and Christians?
Because people who are Hindus are not being allowed to remain Hindus. There are mass conversions going on from the Christian. You see, this is why I said to you, Nihal, it's a very good question. Why are churches being attacked? Why are any institutions or people being attacked? We need to look at the root cause. For every reaction, there's a reaction. For many, many years, Hindus kept quiet or were made to be kept quiet by the Congress government, and yet Christians were coming in and still are in their hundreds and thousands and are using their presence there, for example, under the guise of doing charitable work and doing humanitarian work, but they are forcefully converting people to become Christian. It's the biggest way that the Christian church is growing is in India, because the Christianity numbers are going down here in the West. They want to increase their numbers over there.
Okay, so why is Hinduism failing then to keep people within the fold? I mean, 50 Muslim families have reportedly converted to Hinduism against their will in Agra. 100 Christians have converted to Hinduism in the western state of Gujarat. 30 Christians were converted in the southern state of Kerala. These are figures from the end of 2014.
However, I do not trust those figures. I do not know what the source or how they made those figures up. Secondly, there is no such thing as converting into or becoming, converted into becoming a Hindu at all. There is no such thing. That is a made-up thing by a Western concept of conversion. That is something that Christians have been doing for a long time. And that's why they use that terminology, that kind of language. But you are either a Hindu or you are not, but you do not convert. There is no baptism to become a Hindu. This is what's happening in a lot of...
Well, weirdly enough, groups put on mass ceremonies in India, organised in different parts by right-wing Hindu groups, of mass conversions.
If you've never been... For example, if I've never been a Hindu, then they say that I can convert and become a Hindu or a Christian if I've never been a Christian. However, if you were born a Hindu, you've always been a Hindu, then if you come back to your Hindu, like, for example, when they say you were born-again Christian, you're not being converted into becoming a Christian, you're just a born-again Christian. So it's that kind of concept.
So the head of...
always a Hindu, you can come back to becoming a Hindu, you can come back.
The head of the RSS... He said, we will bring back those who have lost their way. They did not go on their own. They were lured into leaving.
Absolutely. They were lured.
So are you, wait a minute. So are you saying no Christian or Muslim in India is legitimate? Are you saying that?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
You are, because essentially what you're saying that if you're agreeing with him, you're saying essentially that Christians and Muslims were lured into leaving Hinduism. Therefore, but...
They were not lured in the sense...
You just agreed with him.
No, hold on, let me finish. I said they weren't lured into becoming anything of their own free will. They were almost blackmailed economically by being given...
So therefore, again, I'll put the question to you then. Are you then saying that they were... Because if you're saying that Christians and Muslims in India were blackmailed into becoming Christians and Muslims, then I would... assume that you would then feel that there is no such thing as a legitimate Indian Muslim and a legitimate Indian Christian, because they did not become Christian or Muslim by their own free will.
There are plenty of Christians, Muslims and Jews and all other faith denominations living peacefully in India.
That's not the question I asked you.
That's right. There is no problem with that. However, if you find that there are a group of, especially in the villages, who have a huge issue, a huge problem with poverty, and if they feel that their children will be given free education, free uniforms, free meals, free housing, free everything else, if they go to a Christian church, for example, then that's what happens. These children then get taken into these schools under the pretext of charitable support.
So then they are not legitimately, they have not chosen in their heart. They have essentially been blackmailed. They have essentially been bribed into becoming...
What's happened in America.
Right, so therefore, that there is no such thing as a legitimate Christian and Muslim in India.
No, that's too generalisation.
You've just made a generalisation about about Muslims and Christians. You've just said that they have become that because essentially they were bribed into becoming it. You just said that. That's a generalisation.
But that doesn't mean there aren't any genuine Christians.
So what is it? Okay, so describe to me how someone genuinely becomes a Christian and a Muslim in India.
If you genuinely choose to become a Christian because there are no strings attached, fine.
So this is okay. So you can only be genuinely a Christian or a Muslim in India if you are middle class. So if you can afford to pay for your children's education, to put food on the plate, to have a nice house, then you can be one. Is that your argument?
We have just heard about Mother Teresa.
Is that your argument?
My argument is that we have just heard about Mother Teresa and the work that she did. Some of it was excellent work to look after the poor, no question about that. However, the adoption of those children has not been stopped.
So it's economic. Essentially, you're saying it's economic.
It's an economic way.
So you're saying that the only way you can be a genuine Muslim or Christian in India is if you're middle class?
No, certainly not. It's nothing to do
Or if you're
with
economically independent, then?
It's about economics, exactly.
So you're economically independent. So if you're poor, there's no such thing as a legitimate poor Indian Christian or Muslim?
If they have a freedom of choice to become what they wish to do, that's fine. If they don't have a choice, then it's not fine, because they are being, used, if you like. They are being lured, as the words you use, into choosing.
It's not the words I use, it's the words the RSS used.
A dinner on their, it gives them food on their